I'll preface this story by saying that this is a throwaway account, and I've never opened up about this story, because it's taken me a long time to let this sink in. My story isn't as life-threatening as the other ones here, but I felt the need to let this off of my chest. The story starts off with me at 12 years old, diving into the world of puppy love and awkward first romantic encounters. I was called the slut of class during an age where no one actually understood what that entailed, since I was openly liked by at least 5 guys in our class. This only made my self-esteem fall even lower than I thought was possible. I was overly friendly at this time, because when you're young, insecure, and often verging on suicidal, you tend to overcompensate. This meant that I was close to the class outcasts, the ones that were on the spectrum of Naruto running through the halls to socially anxious. One of these guys was the Stalker. Stalker was a casual friend. We'd share lengthy conversations about video games and random YouTubers. You know the kind. He was a socially awkward guy, but pretty harmless. He just had these neckbeard tendencies that were concealed behind the fact that he was a generally well put together guy. On the last day of classes, he confessed that he was attracted to me and asked if I'd be open to dating him. I felt bad for him, and with that pity, I said yes. The good girl complex I had was taking full control, even if every inch of my brain was saying no. It was casual and awkward. I treated it like a friendship with commitment. There were a few red flags, like him tracking my location from my messages, but I thought it was harmless. Eventually, I broke it off. The whole ordeal just left a bad taste in my mouth, and I didn't want to keep it going any longer, as I felt that 6 months was probably enough to validate breaking it off. After all, we were 13, and who the hell took relationships at that stage seriously? Turns out he did. He looked at us as meant to be, because it turns out we were actually friends during childhood, and he held on to that. To win me back, he would often message incessantly, trying to talk to me in school, even following me whenever I needed to go to the bathroom, and even going as far as coming to my house unannounced. At that point, I was alarmed, especially with the thought that he was probably following me home, with how quickly he arrived after I got home from school. Still, good girl mentality in check, I thought I could just turn this into a friendship. He made it very clear that it wasn't going to be that way. He would pick fights with anybody that I liked, and it was excruciating. And he would often force me to hang out with him, at one point grabbing me by the arm while I was with my friends, and only stopping once my friends defended me. I felt both powerless and weak. Once we moved, he would still show up to my doorstep unannounced. This understandably freaked me out. By that time, I was still trying to make it a friendship, while he still insisted on being more than that. I was young, confused, and scared, while I was being blamed for all of this for leading him on, or even engaging with him in the first place. He often used the excuse of needing closure to talk to me, or get my attention, and you'll see how overused that becomes. It reached a point where I was constantly looking over my shoulder and going through lengths just to avoid him, because he would wait by my regular routes to have an excuse to walk with me and talk. I'd change the places I frequented, make sure that I was always surrounded by my friend group, and go as far as ducking past his class to make sure he doesn't follow me as I walked to the bathroom. Whenever the doorbell rang, I would freeze. I was anxious about leaving the house, because I always thought he might be on his way to my home. Once he caught on to this, he ended up spilling up a sob story to our guidance counselor. I suppose she felt bad, which explains why she had me pulled out of class. only to be ambushed into having a lengthy, unnecessary conversation with him, where he pretty much used the "I need closure" excuse, only to not talk about closure instead. Talk as if he didn't have me pulled out of class to talk about closure. My mom ended up chewing out the guidance counselor for doing so. Still, the damage was done. At that point, I thought I'd be safe, and as much as he was a lot less stocky, for lack of a better word, he was still there like a looming presence. I always felt his stare. His friends would act weird around me, and I still felt paranoid and terrified. One day we had a new exchange student. New girl for the sake of this story, who everyone was quick to point out looked like me. The resemblance was uncanny. We ended up becoming close friends, and she told me that during her first week, a group of guys began pointing at her, calling out my name, and that one of them began messaging her and hitting on her. This was her first encounter with being mistaken as me, and we decided to have a bit of fun with this, often pranking others by doing a switcheroo. I would send her down the hallway before me, and to our surprise, this caught his attention. He would stop her in the hallway, only for him to leave her alone once I popped out behind her. It would usually have him dumbfounded, leaving us time to walk away as he processed. This left me slightly comforted that I could confuse him and be able to lessen my encounters with him, and new girl didn't mind. She and I ended up dating. Surprise, surprise, I was lesbian this whole time. And he took personal offense to this, often making weird remarks about it. He was still being creepy this time, leaving notes on my desk on a semi-regular basis. My anxiety grew with this. I then ended up moving schools, and I thought that would be the end of it. In a way, it was because that severely limited our ability to encounter each other. At one point though, my old school's sports team had gone to our school, along with other schools for a regional inter-school competition, and I was actually anxious and refused to leave my classroom for that week. At one point, he blocked me, unblocked me, got a girlfriend, and I thought that was the end of it. As of now, the story's come to its conclusion, and how it ended was with a Twitter conversation. He messaged me asking for closure again, and war flashbacks ensued. I let the conversation happen. He took time to gloat about his happy relationship with the perfect girl, who creepily had a noticeable resemblance. Say what you will about it, but I wish he was happy enough to have just left me alone. So, 5-year stalker, I'm still terrified of walking alone. Still look over my shoulder, no matter how irrational, and fall into paranoia constantly. I'm happy now, but I don't think I'll ever lose that anxiety I was left with. Let's not meet again. Ever.